Last December's overthrow of President Bashar al-Assad of Syria was a hopeful moment. The demise of a tyrant always is. In that specific case, optimism was even more understandable than usual, incited by the prospect that the end of Assad might also mean an end to what Assad had overseen. More than a decade of war, which had killed perhaps 500,000 of Syria's pre-war population of 22 million, driven more than 12 million from their homes and or their country, and left several Syrian cities in ruins. Pessimists, which included a substantial number of people who live in the Middle East or make a living reporting, thinking and writing about the Middle East, noted that one rarely loses money in that part of the world betting on things getting worse. It was widely and reasonably noted that the CV of the figure who led the forces which chased Assad into exile and installed himself as president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, does not exhibit much enthusiasm for pluralistic liberal democracy. President al-Sharaa is a veteran of al-Qaeda's Iraq franchise, indeed was by some accounts deputy to unlamented al-Qaeda commander Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. After a stretch in American military prisons in Iraq, al-Sharaa returned to Syria to launch Jabhat al-Nusra, essentially a new al-Qaeda front. It was at the head of its successor organization, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, that al-Sharaa marched down the M5 motorway to Damascus late last year. Recent developments in Syria have given the pessimistic tendency ample cause to sigh, "We told you so," possibly while massaging their temples or even punctuating each syllable with a bang of forehead against table. Dreadful things have been occurring in Suwaida, capital of the province of the same name in Syria's deep south. Hundreds of people are reported dead in and around Suwaida in fighting pitting the Druze against Bedouin fighters and or militia attached to Syria's new government. Many of the Druze dead are civilians, many of them summarily executed. Tens of thousands of people have fled their homes. Syria's government has deployed troops to enforce a ceasefire which appears to be holding as of this recording, but there does not appear to be much hope that this is an end to the matter. Suwaida has historically been largely inhabited by Druze. There are a little over 1 million Druze in the world, maybe 650,000 of whom live in Syria, or at least did before the war started, another 250,000 in Lebanon, another 150,000 or so in Israel. The Druze faith is usually characterized as a tributary of Shia Islam, but they don't regard themselves as Muslims. The Druze are, by and large, a closed shop. You cannot convert to Druze, and Druze rarely marry outside the faith. They are not, however, reclusive obscurantists. Israeli Druze serve in the Israeli military and are active in Israeli politics. Israel has used this connection to justify recent strikes against Syria, ostensibly in defense of the Druze, including the bombing of the Ministry of Defense in Damascus. In Syria, the Druze didn't have it easy under the rule of Bashar al-Assad or that of his predecessor and father Hafez al-Assad, despite or because of the fact that the Assads were themselves members of a Shia splinter sect, the Alawites. But as Syria imploded from 2011 onwards, Syria's Druze became more autonomous, even confident. Anti-Assad protests in Suwaida in 2023, at which the Druze flag was brandished, looked something like a nationalist insurrection. Though there is not an established Druze independence movement, they do have some historical form for that sort of thing. The Great Syrian Revolt of 1925, a rising against the French hegemon which prevailed at the time, began in Suwaida. The latest fighting is being generally ascribed to a boiling over of long-simmering tensions between the Druze and local Bedouin tribes, inflamed in the near term by the kidnapping of a Druze roadside grocer by Bedouin gangsters. This fact should have made authorities in Damascus nervous. The Arab Spring, of which Syria's long war was a consequence, began with the self-immolation of a Tunisian fruit and veg cart operator weary of being shoved around by local police. From little things, big things can grow. By way of both reinforcing the challenge facing President al-Sharaa and casting doubt upon his ability or willingness to rise to it, a Syrian government investigation released this week into pogroms against Alawite communities on Syria's coast in March concluded that at least 1,426 people had been killed, most of them civilians, most of them by pro-government militias. It is perhaps something that the report was commissioned at all, and it is not nothing that it names 298 suspects, of whom a few dozen have already been arrested. But Syrians have to take it on trust that this is a sincere attempt by their new government to apportion responsibility, rather than a cynical endeavour to deflect it. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Mueller.